Hello there, friend. Welcome back to Sorry What. Make sure you're comfortable with a cup of your favorite drink and let us begin today's story. It was an early release day. We had shortened classes and had an early dismissal. Here, we were sitting in the school library listening to the news mumbo-jumbo that was supposed to increase test scores in math and language arts. My science classes would, once again, be taking a hit because the new plan would be to cut half an hour weekly from my classes to give more time in the two tested curriculums. This was a meeting that was scheduled to be really long, and we had been asked to be prepared to stay until about 6 p.m. Yeah, school administrators are both stupid and assholes. No teacher was going to be fully invested in a meeting that lasted more than 3 hours past the end of the school day on a Friday. Why in hell would the administration schedule this type of workshop? We were supposed to be meeting on suggested changes to next year's bell schedule. The last-minute change had been requested by Area Superintendent George Bullock. I had never liked him. About a year ago, his brother had taken a job at the same bank where my wife worked and was now her new boss. I wouldn't have known about the connection, except that Sharon had been complaining about him being an egotistical asshole, and bragging about how he and his brother both held prestigious positions. At least, she complained about him until about a month ago. Shortly after the meeting started, my phone started vibrating in my pocket. I ignored it because we were actually supposed to have them turned off, and it was a number that looked familiar, but with no name attached. Whoever it was tried several times and stopped. I almost answered, but I was pretty sure I had a name attached to all my important numbers. I had been getting those annoying "we want to buy your house" calls. I just ignored it. Turning off phones was unusual because most of the teachers were parents and should be expected to be able to be reached by their kids. I found out later that it was a request of the same asshole, Mr. Bullock, that scheduled this workshop last minute. About 5 minutes later, my phone started buzzing again. I risked a peek at the number. It was Cindy Wallace, one of my wife's coworkers and best friend. They didn't work in the same department. Sharon was an executive assistant for Benson Bullock, and Cindy worked in the loan department. It was a fairly large building, and they usually only saw each other at lunch and as they were leaving. They went to high school and college together and had remained strong friends. Wondering why Cindy would be calling me, I told my coworkers I had to go to the restroom and walked out into the hallway. "Tom, you need to call Sharon. Leave the workshop right now and call her." "Do it." And she hung up. Damn. Did I forget something? I knew it wasn't our anniversary. I couldn't forget that. It was the day after my birthday. I used to say it was the best birthday present ever. In 8 years of marriage, I can honestly say I had never forgotten an anniversary. Had I forgotten an appointment or something? No, I would always put reminders in my phone as soon as I scheduled anything, or if Sharon told me she had scheduled something. I would get notifications at least one day before, if not more. I walked to the end of the hallway and out the door because the signal in the building was terrible. Sharon's phone rang and went to voicemail. I left a message to call me back, adding, "I love you." I tried again. Still no response. I tried about 5 times and gave up, then called Cindy back. "Tom, did you get a hold of her?" "No." I left a message and tried 4 more times, but no response. "Tom, this is really important. I need you to meet me at Beans and Things, a local coffee house, as soon as you can. Can you leave school now?" I started to get a really bad feeling. Yeah, I'm leaving now. I went out to the staff parking lot and was heading out before I realized I hadn't told anyone I was leaving. Duck it. This was too important. That was when my phone started ringing. I was driving, so I didn't look at the number. I just hit the car sync button to answer. I was sure it was Sharon calling me back about the message I had left. I was surprised to hear the voice of George Bullock. He was furious, wanting to know where I was. I told him I was feeling sick and was headed home. He demanded that I turn around and get back to school right now. I didn't know why I did it, but I lied. "Sure, Mr. Bullock. I'll turn around at the next exit. I'm on the Beltline and there's an exit ahead. I'll warn you, though, I'll have to hit the John as soon as I get there, and it might not be pleasant. I'll use one further away from the library. I don't want to affect anyone that has to take a break during the meeting. I'll be back in the meeting as soon as I can." Apparently that satisfied him because he grumbled, "Get back here and get back in the meeting." Of course, I had no intention of getting back to the meeting because at that moment I was pulling up to Beans and Things. I walked in and was getting ready to order a large black coffee when I heard my name from the back corner. I walked over and saw 2 large coffees on the table. "Sharon always said you preferred black, and you're going to need a large for this conversation." I didn't like the sound of that at all. As I sat down, I asked, "What is this about, Cindy?" I tried calling Sharon again right before coming inside and got voicemail again. Cindy reached over and put her hand on top of mine. Tom, I want you to know I had no advance warning. Sharon told me what she was doing right before she left at lunchtime. Please don't hate me for being the bearer of bad news. I will let you know, I'm going to give you the truth, not the lie she asked me to share with you. With that, I knew my wife had left me. I didn't know the specifics, but I knew she had done something. For the past few days, she had been a lot less responsive in the bedroom. She had been texting while watching TV at night, which she normally didn't do, but I didn't think too much about it until at this moment. At first, I didn't realize I was sobbing uncontrollably, or that Cindy was kneeling beside me, trying to soothe me. After a few minutes, I was able to get myself together. I had to hear what Cindy knew. She got back up, gave a few stern stares to people that were watching us, and sat back down. Sharon and I had met in college. We were in education classes together our sophomore year. Sharon was a very plain girl when I first met her. We became friends and even study buddies, but nothing more than that. I was having to work a lot to help pay for my schooling. My parents were both teachers, and it's true that teachers don't make a lot of money. I didn't have time for a social life, and to be honest, I really didn't care at the time. That was until I showed up one evening to study for a math exam. Sharon had come from a fairly rich family, but also a very conservative one. She never dressed to show off her looks. She had long brown hair that she wore straight, and by long, it hung just past her ass. She always had to pull it to the side when she sat down. I always thought it was cute. What met me at the door was not cute, not by a long shot. Apparently, her friend Cindy had convinced her to do a makeover. Sharon had warned me that she might look different when I got to her dorm room. I found out later that Sharon had told Cindy that she was interested in me, but that I had never shown the first indication that I was interested. That night, I lied and told her that I didn't think she was interested in me as anything other than a friend, and I didn't want to ruin that. Honestly, she just wasn't on my radar. We were just friends and she was just playing. Not that night. She had her hair cut to just below the shoulders, curled to frame her face. Normally, she wore a headband to hold back her hair, so it just fell down her back. She was also wearing makeup, which I had never seen her do before. And her baggy clothes had been replaced by a tight pink cashmere sweater and tight blue jeans. I didn't know how long I stood there with my mouth open, but she was pleased enough with my reaction to just stand still, long enough for my mouth to start to dry up. Okay. She wasn't still. She was twisting back and forth at the waist, and I was mesmerized by breasts I never knew she had. I had always been more drawn to eyes and legs, but right then, I couldn't stop staring. When I lifted my eyes to look into hers, I noticed that she had the most beautiful blue eyes I had ever seen. I felt like an idiot for not noticing them before. I did say I was an eyes and leg man. Why I had never noticed before, I'd never know. Needless to say, I didn't get much studying done that night. Neither did Sharon, but we both passed the exam the next day, anyway. I was sure my grade was due to the fact that Sharon told me that if I scored higher than her, she would treat me to a movie the next weekend. I don't remember what a reward would have been, but I'd never regret staying up all night to study after I left her dorm. Sharon ended up changing majors to get a finance degree, but teaching was what I really wanted to do. We no longer had many classes together, but we started sharing a lot of time together anyway. We dated through the rest of college and ended up getting married shortly after graduation. I got a teaching job in the same city where she started working at a bank. She started her job shortly after graduation, but I had to wait a little while to see if any teaching jobs would open up over the summer. After we married, we found a house south of Raleigh. It was a little bit of a drive for both of us, but our jobs were close to each other, so we carpooled. Every once in a while, one of us would have an appointment or something like the workshop, so our second car was just an old Toyota Corolla. Nothing to look at, but reliable. I didn't mind staying a little later at school to grade papers, but it was a little bit more difficult for her to have to get to work so early since school started a lot earlier than her banker's hours. In the long run, it actually helped her advance in her job to get a better paying position, because the bosses all thought that she was just a dedicated employee. She never let them know otherwise. I thought we had a great life. Normally, we still had sex at least twice a week, usually 3, sometimes 4. We also tried as many positions that we could think of. I didn't think that what we did was boring. Sharon didn't talk much, but by the sounds she made, I guessed what she liked. I knew not to expect sex every night at this point in our marriage, but after 8 years, I thought we had a really good sex life and a great marriage. We had talked about kids, but that was more me than her. She was willing to have kids, but not as eager as I was. After a few years of no results, we both scheduled appointments for fertility checks. I definitely had the swimmers, but the doctor told Sharon that it was highly unlikely, nearly impossible, for her to conceive. She put on a sad face, but when I would look back, I was not sure if I didn't see relief instead of sadness. I got on decently with her parents. I thought I liked them more than they liked me, but sometimes, you have to live with what you could get, as far as in-laws go. Bill had seemed to warm up to me quickly, and over the last few years, Murray seemed to enjoy being around me more, as well. My parents adored Sharon. My dad thought she was gorgeous. My mom thought she was the sweetest girl on the planet. After my younger sister, of course. She knew my older sister wasn't sweet. She was too tough for that. They couldn't wait for us to give them grandchildren. That was one difference between my family and hers. Mine wanted grandkids, hers didn't. Tom, if I had known anything was going on, I would have told you. You know that, right? Cindy said, breaking my trip down memory lane. Cindy had always been a great friend to both Sharon and myself. I never doubted her. Of course, Cindy. I have never questioned your friendship. Just please tell me what is going on. Please, understand. She told me that she loves you more than anything. She just said she was doing something she just had to do. I'm sure you know that you took her V card, and she has never been with another man. I didn't know it when we first had sex. I was also a virgin, but since I felt no barrier, I assumed she wasn't. She later told me she had broken her hymen, riding horses at summer camp that year. The bleeding had scared her so badly, the counselors had called her parents to meet her at the emergency room to have her checked out, and her parents took her home from there. Yes. It took a while to believe her because I never knew that was possible, but I finally did. It made for a rocky few weeks because I thought she had lied to me about never sleeping with anyone else. Sharon came to me and asked me to go out to lunch with her. I agreed. I didn't notice at the time, but she saw me put my phone in my purse, and while I was getting ready, she took my phone out and stuck it in my desk drawer. I'm guessing, because I didn't find my phone until I got back to work. She had stuck a deck of cards in the pocket where I placed my phone that had a note attached to it. I'll explain that in a minute. Anyway, she said she wanted to go get burgers, and she asked me to drive. She said you drove today so you would pick her up later. She drove today. Where is our car? Tom. I'll get to the unimportant stuff later. Just let me finish because this is hard enough. She looked at me for my understanding. I just nodded. Sharon started telling me about those articles she had read, and how she had only ever been with you. She told me over and over again how much she truly loved you, and wanted to spend the rest of her life with you. But she still believed those articles. She hated Benson Bullock when he first came in as her new boss. She told me so, every time we met for lunch. Cindy suddenly sat up straight and looked like she was in pain. She slumped forward and started to sob. I'm so stupid. She acted like she hated Benson up until about a month ago, but she hasn't said anything bad about him for the last month. That's how long she said he had been trying to spend more time talking to her. And he had started closing the door when she went into his office. I'm so sorry. I should have noticed and said something. Don't be upset at yourself, Cindy. You couldn't have known. Please go on. I didn't really want to hear more. I was feeling like my world was collapsing, but I had to know. She told me that Benson had suddenly changed and had started being nice to her and complimenting her. It was gradual, but over the first week, she started to pay more attention to how attractive he was, how he carried himself. She told me that last Friday, he asked her to a business lunch to discuss some changes in the office. He didn't want some of the other employees to overhear that their jobs might be in danger before final decisions were made. She agreed because she said she was starting to see he wasn't such a bad guy. Some of the other girls said they had been hearing rumors that he was an excellent lover, but no one would admit to actually being with him. Everything I was hearing was making me angry. I jumped up, walked to the door and back. I had started to leave, but I needed to hear the rest. When I went back to the table, Cindy had gotten me a glass of water. I thanked her profusely and asked her to continue. Sharon said she never would have considered doing anything with Benson before Sunday. She stopped then and looked very pale. Something she was about to say was worse than anything she had said yet. What happened Sunday? Please tell me. I'm really sorry, Tom. I would have considered it a miracle. To Sharon, it was a sign that she needed to have her experience before it was too late. She paused and took my hands. Sharon had missed her period, so she took a home pregnancy test. You're going to be a father. She said she was going to take a day off from work when she got back and make your favorite meal, and tell you then that she's pregnant. She hasn't done anything yet, so maybe there is still time to stop her. I'm not sure congratulations are in order at this point. I don't know if I can stay with her to raise a child. Even if she hasn't done anything yet, she is planning to. I definitely have a paternity test done. I don't know that she isn't lying to you as well. Maybe she's had sex with him already, and she could only get away for a weekend by getting you to lie for her. Sharon swears that she hadn't done anything yet. That's why this weekend was so urgent. She said that if she had more time, there were other men she would have considered. She's seen the way some of your friends have looked at her. She was positive she could find one that would be discreet and not look down on you. That would have been great. My friends would have known, too. Then I really would be turned into a cluck. I sat back and motioned for her to continue. They were going to go to the Bullock family beach house. She wanted me to tell you that she had to go down for a conference that a Denise was scheduled for and had to cancel last minute. She said she told Benson that they would try having sex tonight. If it wasn't good, she'd have him bring her home and say the conference had been cancelled due to technical problems. If it was good, she'd come back Sunday night. She said she was going to have Benson drive her by the house and pack a small bag and leave you a note saying what she told me about the conference. She was planning a whole weekend of sex. And she thought I'd be okay with that. She thought you'd never find out. She actually was certain that I would cover for her. I don't know why she'd ever think that because she knows Dave cheated on me and I threw him out. She still loves you. I know she does, because she said they were turning their phones off after 4 o'clock because she knew you wouldn't be out of your workshop before then. And she told me that if you called and said you love her, which you always do when you're on the phone, she couldn't go through with it. That's why I tried to get you to call her so quickly. I hope you get her before she shut off her phone. Benson pulled up about then and she ran out, got in his truck and left. That's when I realized what I thought was my phone was a deck of cards. She had taped a note to the deck. Cindy held it out for me to read. Cindy, I really need you to support me in this. If you don't, Tom will be heartbroken. I know you don't want to do that to Tom. I know I'm putting a huge burden on you, but I know you'll do this for me. In case I'm wrong, I hid your phone. We'll both have our phones turned off by the time you find it. By then it will be too late. If you care for Tom the way I know you do, you won't tell him about something that he won't be able to stop. If you don't tell him, he will never know. If I thought he could handle it, I would have talked to him before I left. He must never know. I raced back to the bank to get my phone, and that's when I called you. My head was throbbing, and I was getting ready to pour out my then cold coffee and start on whatever B&T had on tap when my phone started buzzing. Maybe it was her. I pulled out my phone and didn't recognize the number. I answered. Is this Thomas Marlborough? Yes. Mr. Marlborough, this is Sergeant Pike with the Sheriff's Office. Your wife was in the wreck earlier today and is at Rick's hospital. We were just recently able to find identification for her. I suggest you hurry. I can send a car as escort, if necessary. I'm actually close to the hospital. I'll be there soon. I hung up and I could tell by the look on Cindy's face that she had heard everything. I'll drive, she said. I'll get you that beer later. I followed the doctor to the ICU and walked in to see Sharon. I couldn't even tell it was her. Her face was swollen and her head was completely wrapped in bandages. When she heard me, she looked up, and I heard her give a low moan. I walked up closer because I wasn't sure if I'd be able to hear her. I could barely hear her as she said, I'm so sorry. I really do love you. I thought this was something I needed to do. I was going to come back home and love you forever. Too bad you didn't love me today, I sighed, and turned to walk out. And then the machines went crazy. I was rushed out by the nurses, and the doctors surrounded her. The doctor that had spoken to me earlier came out and told me that she had passed. I was numb. I didn't know how long I stood there with the doctor trying to speak to me. I heard a little bit, but then everything went blank. I woke up in a hospital bed sometime later. Apparently, I had gone into shock, and the doctor had given me a sedative and put me in a room by myself. He came in once and told me I could stay till the morning. I left the hospital after getting approval from the doctor. I didn't want to do it, but I made arrangements for my wife's body to be delivered to the crematorium. I asked the doctor to do a last-minute check for me. Sharon had told Cindy that she was pregnant. I wanted to confirm or disprove that. As an afterthought, I asked if they still had a sample of my blood. He said they did. As I asked my next question, I almost broke down again. Please do a DNA analysis on the unborn fetus and compare it to mine and the other fatality from the accident. The doctor nodded his understanding and I walked out. I'd figure out what to do with her ashes later. That's when I realized I needed to call Sharon's parents and let them know. I had been so upset over her betrayal, or possibly her attempted betrayal, that I hadn't notified them. This was going to be a tough phone call, so I decided I'd wait until I got home. I would also need to tell my parents. Would I be able to tell them that she was pregnant when she died? I didn't think I could. I hadn't noticed that anyone had tried to call me. Possibly due to a bad signal in the hospital, but I checked my phone, and I had a missed call and several texts from my principal. I realized I was walking around the parking lot looking for my car, and remembered that Cindy had driven me here. The hospital wasn't far from the bank where Sharon had apparently left the car, so I decided to walk there. I had just started down the sidewalk when I heard a car horn and saw Cindy pull up next to me. As I was getting in, she was berating me for not calling her for a ride. I just told her I was out of it and had just realized I hadn't driven here, and that it wasn't too far to walk. Cindy gave me a sour look and just said, "Buckle up," and took off toward the bank. As we flew past the bank, I asked Cindy what was up. "You are in no condition to drive right now and in no condition to be alone. I went home long enough to get a change of clothes. That's why I wasn't there when you were released." "Sin, that's not necessary. Where the duck did that come from?" I had never called her anything but Cindy. Well, I might have called her a couple of names behind her back when she was siding with Sharon in one of our rare disagreements, but still. Sin. Apparently she hadn't noticed, or she didn't care because she never commented on it. "Tom, I think it's not only necessary, I think it's something that I need to do. I feel responsible for not being able to stop her from walking out yesterday." Cindy. That was better. I know how headstrong Sharon could get. You couldn't have stopped her. It was something she felt like she had to do. I'm not sure it would have helped us in the long run. If she had stopped yesterday, but still felt like she had to do it, she would have done it, eventually. And the next time, there might not have been a train. And I might have killed her in a different way. What? You didn't kill her. She got hit by a train. That's when I told her about the final conversation I had with Sharon. I just knew that my words had sent her into a shock that her beaten and bruised body couldn't handle. I was positive that my comment had killed her. Not intentionally, but I had killed her just the same. Tom, I know it feels that way now, but the consequences all stemmed from her decisions. She brought this on herself. By then, we were pulling up to my house, I guess. I told Cindy she didn't need to stay, that I'd be fine. If she could just come and give me a ride to pick up the car tomorrow. She wouldn't listen and just grabbed her bag and followed me inside. That evening, I got a phone call from my principal. It seemed that the area superintendent was furious about my not returning at first. But then it escalated. George got a phone call and started screaming about you killing his brother. He said he was going to call the police and have you arrested, and then he'd have you buried under the jail. He then said something about all this being a waste of his time. I left because I got a disturbing phone call. And then I found out my wife had been in an accident. She passed away yesterday. I hope you can understand my not returning and can smooth things over with Mr. Bullock. Tom, I'm really sorry to hear about your wife. Please, take as much time off as you can. I'll get a sub for at least next week and we'll go from there. Please take care of yourself and call me back when you feel like talking. I'm more than willing to come by your place. And let me know about any arrangements for your wife. I woke up with a splitting headache and sore hands. As soon as I could open my eyes, I looked at my hands and they were bandaged, and I could see a little blood seeping through over my knuckles. I groaned as I remembered hitting something, but I couldn't remember what. Tom, are you awake? A sobbing voice asked. Sharon, what's wrong? You sound like you've been crying. I'm sorry, Tom, but it's Cindy. Sharon's gone, sweetheart. And then, more sobbing. Then it all came back. Well, most of it. I still didn't know why my hands were hurting. But all that happened on Friday and Saturday up to the phone call from my principal. I wasn't able to explain it, but I felt nothing. I wasn't sad at losing Sharon. Either to that bastard or to the train wreck. I wasn't angry at Sharon or the bastard, I was numb. I looked over and Cindy was sitting up in what looked like one of our chairs from the kitchen table. She still had a throw over her. I started to throw back the sheet and get up when Cindy cleared her throat. I looked over and she kind of nodded her head down. I looked and I was naked. I always slept naked, but I didn't remember getting that way. Okay. Tell me what happened last night. After you saw the note on the kitchen table you went berserk. You were yelling and throwing and breaking things. I was able to stop you, but then you started hitting the kitchen door with your fists. You wouldn't stop until I jumped on your back. Then you sank to the floor, sobbing. I just held you until you cried it out. I cleaned up your hands and bandaged them as best I could. You might want to see a doctor about them. You're going to have to replace the door. That doesn't explain how I got this way. I pointed at the sheet for emphasis. After I bandaged your hands, I got you to walk upstairs to bed. I tried to get you in the bed, but you insisted that you slept naked, and you just dropped your pants, underwear and all. You tore off your shirt and crawled in bed. I went back downstairs and cleaned up as best I could, and brought one of the two remaining chairs upstairs, and I've been watching you all night. Well, I guess you've already seen me, but could you turn your head so I can get up and get dressed? I'll just go downstairs. I don't think I could trust myself not to peek. Then she squeaked in embarrassment and ran out the door. As I was pulling on my clothes, I realized I might need to see the doctor about my hands. Pulling on my slacks really hurt. I went downstairs to the living room, where I found Cindy sitting on the sofa. She was holding the note and crying again. I need to call Sharon's parents, and then I'm going to need to see that note again. I can't remember anything it said. I decided to call my parents first. My dad had a heart attack 2 months ago, but was recuperating. I spoke to Mom, giving her the barest details. I didn't want to upset Dad too much at one time. Both he and Mom really loved Sharon. Dad could hear Mom crying, so she passed the news to him while I was still on the line. They both expressed their sorrow and said they'd be praying for me. I told them I loved them and there was no need to make plans to come for a funeral. I didn't have any idea of arrangements yet. As I hung up, I couldn't help but wonder if they'd still feel sorrow when they found out the whole truth. The whole truth. That was something I didn't know if I would ever find out. I steeled myself for the phone call. I hadn't yet come to grips with it myself, but they needed to know. Marie answered the phone, and I asked if Bill was around. I needed to speak to both of them. Bill's right here, but if you're going to ask where Sharon is, I can't tell you anything. I told her not to give me any details. I immediately saw that then if Cindy hadn't grabbed my hands, I would have thrown my phone into the wall. I still regret what I said next, but I couldn't stop the words that came out next. I know where she is, you witch. She's in the morgue, and if you knew about her plans and you didn't try to stop her, you helped put her there. I hung up and turned off my phone. She had talked to her mom about her plans, and her mom either encouraged her or didn't discourage her. She just admitted she didn't want details so that I wouldn't find out where she was. I couldn't tell if her father knew, but I'd find out in a day or so. I immediately regretted my outburst. I turned my phone back on, and it started ringing as soon as it started back up. It was Bill. Marie was screaming and crying in the background. Boy, what do you mean upsetting Marie like that? What did you say to her? Before I answer, Bill, did you know about Sharon's plans to cheat on me? What are you talking about? No. Sharon loves you. She would not cheat on you. Well, Bill, it looks like you have some things to discuss with Marie. Sharon died 2 days ago. She was riding in a truck with her lover as they were leaving for a weekend getaway. I just told Marie that if she knew and didn't try to stop her, she had helped put her in the morgue. I waited for a response. Bill, are you still there? Are you serious? Sharon is dead. When he said that, I could hear Marie wailing in the background again. Yes, Bill. Apparently, since Sharon had only ever had sex with me, she felt she deserved to try another man. On their way out of town, the truck they were in was hit by a train. I made arrangements to have her cremated. If you want me to change that, I need to know by tomorrow morning. I need to go now. I'll fix up a room if you'll want to stay here. I'm sure you'll want to come up. Call me back if you want to change the arrangements. I hung up and sat down beside Cindy and hung my head. I should have handled that very differently. No, Tom. I think you did the best you could under the circumstances. I couldn't hear everything, but it sounds like Sharon's mom knew about her plans. If that's true, she needs to know she helped cause this. Before we take another look at that note, let's go get one of your cars. Which do you need the most? The Mustang is a nicer car, but since Sharon was the last one to drive it, I think I'd rather get the Corolla. Let's head to Beans and Things. If you're up to it, I'll buy you a beer while we're there. I appreciate it, but I think I need to keep my wits about me for now. We went and got the car, and just for sheeps and giggles, we went back out and got the Mustang as well. When we got back to the house, I asked Cindy if she'd stay with me while I reread the note. She got the note from where she left it. Apparently, she had hidden it because she didn't want me to read it again if she wasn't there. Most of the note was typed and printed out, with a handwritten portion at the bottom. The first part followed the lies she wanted Cindy to repeat. Thomas, Deborah had to back out of a conference at the coast at the last minute. Benson asked me to cover for her just this morning. I don't really want to go, but this will be good for me. It will help me in my growth. It might be a rough weekend for you without me, but I honestly think this weekend will benefit us both in the long run. I'm sorry this couldn't be a we decision. It has to be a me decision this time. Love, Sharon. Below that, in Sharon's handwriting. I really do love you, Tom, with all my heart. I just needed to make this decision for me. When I get back, I have some great news to share with you. I really do love you, Thomas. Please believe me. Then I remembered why I had gone berserk. If I hadn't found out about Benson, I would have interpreted the handwritten message as an apology for deciding to go to the conference without talking to me first. But knowing what I knew then, I could tell she was apologizing for leaving with another man, even though she thought I would never find out. At about 9 o'clock that night, Bill called me back. Tom, I will need to talk to you more later, but I wanted to ask you to change the arrangements and have Sharon's body sent to the funeral home. We want to pay for a grave and have her buried. We may not be able to have an open casket, but we, at least, want to do this. I understand. I'll call the funeral home first thing in the morning. I will talk to you, but if Marie did know what was going on, I do not want to talk to her. Please respect my wishes. Have you made arrangements to come up yet? If you're flying, I can pick you up at the airport. It might be crowded in the Corolla. If you plan on staying a while, I can rent a van or borrow Cindy's car to carry your luggage. We have a flight arriving at 11. We have to get up early, but Marie will have to suck it up. We can get a rental car. We plan on getting a hotel and staying a while. Don't even think about it. You can drive either the Corolla or the Mustang. I don't really care. The Mustang was Sharon's baby. And if you've made a reservation, cancel it. You can stay with me for the duration. Depending on how everything plays out, I may not be very nice to Marie, but I'll try to be civil. That sounds like a damn fine plan. Even the not being nice part. She hasn't said anything outright. I don't know if she knew for sure or just suspected, but there was something in her eyes. Let me go pack so we can make our early flight. If you can pick us up, we'll see you shortly after 11. Flying United, so I think that's Terminal 1. Good night, Bill. I'll pick you up tomorrow. The next day, I arrived at Terminal 1 just as Bill and Marie were walking out the doors. I pulled up right in front of them and got out to help load their bags into Cindy's car. It had a spacious trunk. Cindy came with us, but insisted I drive. She stayed in the front seat to keep Marie from taking it because she knew I didn't want that conversation yet. We had only been on the interstate for 2 minutes before Bill spoke up. Can you please tell us what happened? I know it's tough, but we need to know. I sighed. Okay. But Cindy will need to tell part of it because I only heard it from her. Sharon told Cindy what she was actually doing, but also gave her a lie to share with me. Cindy told her part of the story. Sharon had asked her to lunch, explained that she needed to try out another man, then told her the lies she wanted me to hear, and made her promise to lie to me. She then told me about the phone switch, and then of her calling me as quickly as she could. I took over and explained the call from the police and the conversation at the hospital. The police still had yet to come to the house to question me further, but they said it might be a day or two to give me a little time. It wasn't a case that demanded urgency. I told them everything, up to and including my last words to her. Marie inhaled a sharp breath. I'm sorry I killed your daughter. If she had told me what she was doing beforehand, I'd still be pissed off, but I might not have lashed out like that. The marriage would have been over if I couldn't talk her out of it, but I never wanted her dead. I truly regret my words. I'm so sorry. Bill spoke up at that point. Tom, I already knew about that. Paraphrased a little, I guess. I called the hospital last night and the nurse on duty spoke to me. She said that Sharon was barely hanging on and was almost gone by the time you entered the room. She was standing in the corner and you probably didn't see her. She was looking at Sharon's face, and she said that she truly believes that Sharon actually died right after she finished speaking, and she never heard your words. I can't say I approve of what you said, but if that had been Marie, I might actually have been harsher, myself. That brought another sharp breath from Marie. I glanced up to the rearview mirror and saw Marie looking at Bill with a scared look in her eyes. I told them about the train hitting the car. That they shouldn't have even been on the track. The police still hadn't explained how they got past the crossing arms. The train hit on Benson's side and he was probably dead instantly. They don't know how Sharon survived as long as she did. The rest of the drive was quiet. We got to the house and I helped Bill carry the bags in and upstairs to the second guest room. I told Cindy I'd still like for her to stay, if she felt comfortable. She said she'd need to run back to her apartment for some more clothes, but she'd be back later. She'd shower and make some calls. I'll be back tonight. Talk to Sharon's parents. With that, she rose up on her tiptoes and gave a quick kiss on the cheek, then patted the same cheek with her hand. She left and I walked into the living room where Sharon's parents, I mean Bill and Marie, were sitting. I realized if I was going to have any relationship with them, I had to remove Sharon from the equation. I asked them if they wanted anything to drink before we finished our conversation. Bill knew I kept some Discovery American single malt from a local distillery. It was my favorite, but definitely not cheap. Marie just wanted iced tea. I poured Bill and I both 2 fingers of the single malt and got Marie a large glass of tea. Marie, could you please explain to me what you know and didn't know? Tom, please know that Sharon truly loved you. I started to object to that, but she just raised her hand to silence me. I need to get through this, Tom. If, after hearing everything, you don't want to talk to me, I'll understand. She sighed, then continued. Sharon has always talked about how much she loves you. She described you as a perfect husband. She said you were doing things for her even if you had to sacrifice for yourself. I didn't know you had sold your truck and bought that Corolla so that you could get her that Mustang. I know I hadn't said anything to you, but hearing her words made me realize you were the perfect man for her. She needed someone like you. I'm sorry I never got a chance to tell you. I like my truck, but honestly, I didn't really need a truck. It wasn't really that much of a sacrifice, but I let her continue. She said you were considering a part-time job to save money for a vacation. She was ecstatic. Then about 3 weeks ago, she said a coworker of hers, not Cindy, of course, it was a new girl in the department, Janet, I think. Anyway, Janet started putting her down for the way she gushed about you. She said Sharon had the wool over her eyes. She said that the most perfect seeming husbands are the ones that were most likely cheating. They tried to be perfect at home, so that the wife would never suspect them of cheating. I was seething at this information, but Murray gave me a look that interpreted as, let me finish. So I did. She also started telling her that almost twice as many men cheated as women, and that if you hadn't cheated yet, you probably would. Especially when she found out you had promised to get a part-time job. She said that would give you an opportunity to cheat. Stupid Sharon, sorry, Bill, but it was stupid. Then told Janet that both of you were virgins when you started dating, and had only been with each other. Janet said that was archaic, and that it was a recipe for disaster in modern marriages. I had thought that was an integral part of why our marriage was so strong. At least, I thought it was strong, until Friday. Janet told her that she shouldn't encourage you to look for another woman, because you probably were already cheating. She told her she needed to have sex with another man, so she could see what it was like. She kept telling her that it would just be sex. That it wouldn't be making love. That would be reserved for you. It wouldn't hurt your marriage if it was just sex. It would actually make your marriage stronger because she might learn some things to spice up the bedroom. She gave her some websites to visit that explained everything. I told Sharon that this was all hogwash. We talked about the fact that she really loved you, and you really loved her. And you never went out and had no opportunities to cheat. She seemed to agree with me. She even said that she had stopped talking to Janet because she was starting to get upset every time Janet was around. Marie then dropped her head and lowered her voice. Sharon and I didn't have much of a chance to talk last week because I broke my phone and it was being repaired. Maybe if I had called her from the landline, I could have brought this to an end. She called me on the landline Friday morning and told me she was pregnant. I was so happy for both of you. She said that after she told Cindy on Monday, Janet overheard and dragged her off to an empty room. Sharon said that Janet knew that Benson had wanted to have sex with her, and he had been planning a trip to the beach, leaving after lunch because he had a meeting then. Sharon admitted that Benson had asked her Monday morning to go with him for the weekend. Janet told her this was the perfect opportunity to try another man. They could use the week to work up an excuse for her to get away. His brother worked with the school system and could distract Tom until they left. That's the first time that Sharon had admitted to me that this guy had been coming on to her. I swear that to you now, Tom. I had not heard of that until Friday. I wanted to believe her. Maybe I saw the truth in her eyes because of that, but I thought she was being honest. I really tried to talk her out of it. But she said that since she was pregnant, she needed to do this before her child was born. She didn't think she could do it if she had a child waiting at home. She felt it was something she needed to do, and it would only improve your marriage. Marie came over to me and pulled me to my feet so she could look me in the eyes, even if she did have to look up a bit. Tom, Sharon tried to give me the information about where she was going in case of an emergency. She said she and Benson had agreed to have a no-phones weekend. I think he suggested it because he knew if you called, she'd come home. Marie started crying again. I waited for her to pull it together. Tom, I did tell Sharon I didn't want to know where she was going, but it was because I told her she wasn't going. She was going to go home and be with you this weekend and share the news of the baby and celebrate. She just said, "I'm going, Mom," and hung up. That's when I tried calling you. I had your number on the refrigerator. The number I didn't recognize. I wish I had that landline number programmed in my phone. But they never used it, they just had it for emergencies. I pulled Marie to me and I hugged her hard. I'm so sorry for talking to you the way I did, Marie. I jumped to a conclusion and I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. Bill came over and joined the hug. We both love you, Tom. Our stupid daughter, yes, Marie, I said it. I might not be so mad at her tomorrow, but right now I'm furious. She made a huge mistake. It cost us her life, our grandchild, and our son-in-law. Bill, I'm still part of your family. I love you both. I will not desert you. But right now, I think I need some alone time. I'm going to get a shower and go to bed. I'm supposed to talk to the police tomorrow and possibly get more information from the hospital. I put Cindy's bag in one guest room. The other room has a queen bed. That'll be more comfortable for you. You won't be alone, Tom. Cindy snuck in while we were talking and I'm pretty sure she went into your bedroom. Bill, I just lost my wife, your daughter. I'm not ready for that. Marie spoke up. That's not what he's suggesting. We've known Cindy for a long time. She loves you more than you know. Right now, you need someone to hold you, comfort you. I know Cindy well enough to know that she would not try to take advantage of your emotional state. You also have to realize that she just lost her best friend. And that's just what happened. There was no sex, no kissing. Just holding on to someone while we were grieving. I didn't even have to worry about Bill and Marie across the hall. Sex was not on either of our minds. Monday morning, I awoke alone. Turns out that Cindy had to go back to work for a few things, but she'd be taking the rest of the week off. Bill had left a message that he and Marie were going to the funeral home and would eat breakfast out. I toasted a bagel and spread cream cheese on it. I realized that I hadn't set the coffee pot to automatically come on like I usually did, so I just poured myself a glass of orange juice. That's when the doorbell rang. I answered the door in just my robe. It was the deputy from the hospital, Sergeant Pike. I asked him to come in and went to make that coffee. Mr. Marlborough, I'd like to go over what we know and share some information that I think will benefit you. The signal crossing arms and lights were not working. There's a considerable amount of trees to block the vision. That's why that crossing had the lights and arms. We don't know if the driver saw the train and tried to beat it because the arms weren't down, or maybe he thought if the arms weren't down, he had time to cross. We'll never know. As we were going over paperwork before shift change, Mr. Bullock from the county school system came in, trying to press charges against you for murdering his brother. He was walking around telling people in the precinct waiting room that his brother was dead. He knew that Thomas Marlborough would have killed his brother if he knew what was going to happen. A teenager waiting for his dad's shift to end recorded everything on his cell phone. You know how kids are these days. Anyway, he was getting ready to post it when his dad came out. His son showed him the video before posting it. My son, I mean this teenager, agreed to give the video to the officer and agreed not to post it for 2 weeks. From the video, we put together that he had decided to schedule a long meeting on that Friday to keep you busy until Benson could get your wife out of town. We also discovered that several higher-ups at the bank knew of Benson's attempts and success of wooing female employees. Although the company has a morals clause, it was too tough to enforce if the female employee didn't complain or they didn't have proof. We think that them being together in the accident as well as the testimony from your friend at the hospital, we can help you with that. First, the signal crossing arms at the crossing where the accident occurred were malfunctioning. It had been reported a month ago, but never fixed. I'm not telling you what to do, but any other person might tell you to consider wrongful death suit against the railroad, if that's possible. Second, you can file suit against the bank for not enforcing the morals clause. Third, you can file a civil suit against George Bullock. Apparently, his brother asked him to come up with a way to keep you from stopping your wife from leaving. I'm sure that the school system might want to settle to keep that kind of information out of the news. It was a lot to take in. I bid the officers good day and was getting ready to pour myself another cup of coffee when the phone rang. I didn't remember everything that was said, but the call was to inform me that Sharon was, indeed, pregnant at the time of the accident, and the DNA test showed that I was the father. I was still standing in the kitchen, sobbing, when Cindy came back. I had an iron grip on the coffee mug in one hand, and my phone in the other, and Cindy couldn't make me let go. My knuckles were white and I was wobbling, almost passed out when she found me. I don't know how long I was there, but my coffee was cold when she found me. Cindy later said she shouted and threw water on me with no results. I finally responded when she slapped the sheep out of me. I dropped the mug and my phone and fell backwards. Luckily, I was next to the only remaining chair to the table, and she guided me into it. Between sobs, I was able to say, the baby was mine. After I calmed down, I knew I had to call Mom and tell her the rest of the story. I called and thankfully Mom was alone. I told Mom the facts about Cindy's death. I told her that was part of the reason I didn't handle the arrangements for the funeral. I left out the part about Sharon being pregnant. I didn't think I could bear to add her grief to mine. Over the next few days, Cindy remained with me every night. My in-laws stayed and never said a word about the sleeping arrangements. I had no grief in my heart for Sharon, only for my unborn child. I called her Lucy. I didn't know if it was a boy or girl, it just felt right. I agreed to sign over Sharon's body, so Bill and Marie could hold a memorial service. I didn't want to attend, but I did out of respect for my in-laws. It was sparsely attended. I think due to the fact that her intended affair was revealed in the news reports about the accident. I didn't leak that information. Nope. Not me. Maybe. I held a separate memorial service for Lucy. It had an even smaller crowd because I only invited Cindy, Bill, and Marie. I asked Cindy to go and wait for me in the car. I had found out where BB, I didn't even want to think his name, was buried. I drank extra coffee this morning to prepare for this. I pissed all over his grave and headstone. Cindy moved in, temporarily, a week later because she said her lease was up and she couldn't find anything else. She had forgotten to re-sign and needed a place to stay. I offered to give up the master bedroom and move to the guest room, but she said she didn't want to kick me out of my bed. She also never volunteered to move to the guest room. Getting back in the classroom, spending time with Cindy, and even my nightly chats with Bill and Murray, started getting me out of the funk I was in. One day, I was getting ready to leave school when I got a call from Murray. She wanted to talk to me when I got home. It seemed Bill was off to the big box home improvement store and would likely be gone for hours. She wanted me to walk around the side of the house and meet her out on the deck. When I got there, Murray grabbed my hand and said, "Come, walk with me for a while." And we took off through the neighborhood. "Tom, I need to tell you something you should have already figured out for yourself, but you are a man, after all. So someone has to explain it to you. Cindy loves you, son. I know that. She's been a good friend all these years. I couldn't have survived this ordeal without her. No, Tom. She loves you. I've suspected it for years. She and Sharon were friends before they met you. They used to talk about you all the time after you started studying together. I think Cindy loved you back then. I always saw something in her eyes. I'm seeing it again now. I know it hasn't been that long since you lost Sharon, but under the circumstances, I think it has been long enough. I have tickets to the hockey game this Friday. You are going to take Cindy. I know you are a big hockey fan. Neither is Cindy, but that's not the purpose. You both need to get out. Trust me. I got the tickets because I have a friend with some pull at the arena. Go. I promise you, it will be worth it. And don't drink beer while you're there. You don't want to miss anything because you're in the restroom." Bill and Murray headed home the next morning. Cindy and I were still sleeping together. Not romantically, but still holding each other every night. I was pretty sure I was completely stupid at this point. I took the tickets. Cindy was making supper when we got back to the house. I didn't expect Cindy to agree to go, since neither of us were fans. She said yes almost before I finished asking. She told me later that Murray had texted her before I got back. She was instructed to say yes, no matter what, and to thank her later. On Friday, we both dressed in slacks and long-sleeve shirts. We had never been to a hockey game before, and didn't know if it'd be cold because of the ice or not. We also carried a blanket. It was interesting. The home team was winning, so the crowd was very excited. We weren't really sure of anything, so we kept asking the couple in the seats next to us to explain things. Why some players had to go to a box. Why sometimes most of the players moved to one end of the ice. Why some players never seemed to cross the line, etc. All that was forgotten when they started showing the kiss cam. We laughed as some people had pre-made signs like, "She's my sister" or "That's my ex, but I'm not giving up my tickets." The other couples were kissing. Some full kisses, some just little pecks. Then the big display showed me and Cindy. I looked over at her and she just shrugged. I leaned forward and kissed her gently. And the next thing I knew, I was going back for more. The feeling of that first kiss was indescribable. I had never felt that with Sharon. I just knew I had to have more of that. The crowd was going wild. Or so I thought. It might have just been my heart. I wrapped my arms around Cindy and didn't let go. Our new friends tapped me on the shoulder a couple of times to tell me the camera was off, but I didn't care. When we finally stopped, we just sat there looking at each other. Then, I gathered my wits, and I just said, "I think we've been here long enough. If we leave now, we can beat most of the traffic." Cindy just nodded and stood up with me. We shimmied through the seats to the aisle and almost ran up the steps to the exit. Then we realized we actually needed to go down instead. Laughing, we found our way out into the concession area. As we were getting ready to leave, I stopped and bought a stuffed mascot. "I didn't think you were a fan," Cindy asked. "No, but if this is leading where I think it is, I definitely want a souvenir." Cindy giggled at that, and we practically ran for the car. I had driven the Corolla because it wouldn't matter if it got dinged in the parking lot. On the way home, Cindy tried to sit closer, and I cursed Toyota for their console design. We ended up just holding hands, except when I had to shift. I dropped the keys when I was trying to open the door. I started to pick them up and saw what Cindy was doing. She was doing that thing where she was removing the bra without taking off her shirt. I searched for the keys with renewed vigor. We made love several times that night, fell asleep in each other's arms, and started again in the morning. We decided to skip breakfast and go out for lunch. After we got back, Cindy asked me to sit down in the living room while she got us some drinks. It was still afternoon, so I wasn't expecting my favorite single malt, much less 2 fingers of it. She handed me my glass and sat on the couch beside me. "Tom, I meant what I said last night. And again this morning. But I have to say something that might make you doubt that. Please, don't say anything." Let me get this out. I just ask, please don't hate me. I just can't live with myself knowing I lied to you, even if indirectly. I have loved you since before you ever went out with Sharon. When she decided she loved you as well, I decided to step back and see what would happen. You had not shown an interest in either of us. I always regretted that makeover. I always thought, what if I had just dressed myself up? But then, she was the one that brought you to her dorm. I had to let her try first. I tried to get over you. I met and married Dave. I never loved him. I tried, but I couldn't. I couldn't make love to him as much as you liked. I had to picture you in my mind to get in the mood. I don't know if he ever suspected, or if he cheated because I wasn't loving enough. But I always felt I drove him to cheat. That's why I could never hate him. I acted mad, but I was actually relieved. I had all discussions through lawyers, because I knew I could not act mad for that long and get away with it. Now that I have you, I want you to know that you will always have me, and always have all of me. I could never totally give myself to Dave. To really let go. It might sound terrible, but I'm glad Sharon has released you from your vows. I took her trembling hands. Sin, I love you like I have never loved another. I only want you. Always. We went back upstairs and made love some more. Then we ducked. Later that night, we made love again, slow and soft. The next morning, Cindy called Marie and just said a simple, thank you, and hung up. Epilogue. Sergeant Pike had given me a business card for a really good lawyer. Actually, it was his brother. But he was really good. 3 suits were filed. The first 2 settled for close to what we asked for. The school system, and specifically George Bullock, tried to fight it. When he found out that North Carolina still allowed alienation of affection lawsuits. Even against third parties not in the affair, but any third party for wrongful acts that deprived them of the love and affection of their spouse. We then countered with a higher amount and said if they didn't settle, the video of his rant admitting to helping his brother would be made public. That ended that fight really quickly. Within 6 months, Cindy and I were officially married. I say officially, because we went to the courthouse the next week and had a private civil ceremony. We didn't want everyone to think we were moving too fast, but we couldn't wait. We did wait until after the official ceremony for Cindy to go off birth control. A year later, we welcomed Marie-Louise Marlborough into our family. After all, that kiss cam was set up by Marie's friend at the arena. Louise was Cindy's mother. A year later, Marie was joined by William Robert Marlborough. Robert was my father. He was 7 years old before the first person tried to call him Billy Bob. I groaned because that had never occurred to me. Cindy and I are getting ready to celebrate our 25th wedding anniversary. Marie was trying to put together a slideshow and found pictures I thought I had destroyed. Dad, who is this woman with you at the beach? I saw the photo of Sharon and me. That Marie is the woman that introduced me to your mother. I thought at one time that I loved her. I will never talk about it again, but I am eternally grateful for the circumstances that led me away from her and into your mother's arms. I never knew what love was until your mother went with me to a hockey game. I didn't realize Cindy was right behind me till I heard, Tom, go get the picture of the kiss cam. That definitely has to be included.